Okay, this is gonna be my last video, my final video on the Larry Nassar case. And when I say final, I mean for real this time. Now, what happened last time was they were still. I was asking around, like journalists that were in the courtroom and stuff like that, on Twitter and stuff like that, about a third case coming up. Isn't there supposed to be a third case? Blah blah blah. And I got shit back on it. Now, I thought that one of two possibilities happened. Possibility one, they combined the cases into two. They combined the two cases into one. And depending on how the judge and the district attorney feel, that has happened before. In fact, these cases were all prosecuted by the same woman. Yes, the woman prosecutor went across went across county lines to prosecute both cases, which is not that common. Very seldom see a district attorney go from one county to the next. This doesn't happen. One town to the next, yes, no question. Okay, but it doesn't happen very often, but it did this time. So I thought they would combine all the cases together, and I thought the England case was it. No. But there was also another possibility that I was toying with in my head, that they might drop the charges. Now, under normal circumstances, they would never drop charges in a sex abuse case. But when you consider A, the defendant is not getting out of prison anyway, and B, the defendant's risk, because when you have a guy who has nothing to lose, he needs to be very heavily guarded. He's transported from one jail to another, one prison to another, the courthouse, okay? When that prisoner is transferred, he or she needs to be very heavily guarded. And sometimes they put people in wrist and ankle chains. There's a gentleman who he runs a channel called Life After Prison. He went to prison for 7 years and now he was rehabilitated, and he has a channel where he talks about what goes on in prison. And this gentleman was in jail with Lee Boyd Malvo, the second DC sniper. And he said when Lee Boyd Malvo was 17 years old, when he was taken back and forth to court, they chained him to a wheelchair. Okay? So there have been cases where you have serial killers, mass murderers, terrorists, okay, very dangerous guys who are like almost chained up Hannibal Lecter style when they leave their cell. Because the risk to them escaping or the risk of them hurting a guard is just too great. Now, Larry Nassar is not a very intimidating person. He's a little fucking weasel. But you never know what might happen. Because he had nothing to lose. And when guys have nothing to lose, they do stupid shit. And however, good or bad his attempt might be, someone might get hurt. Another possibility is they can legally have you in court via satellite, which means they have you in jail or in prison, and they do a satellite hookup, and you literally attend court via satellite. Okay, that has held up many times. But no, they brought Larry Nassar to Eaton, Michigan, for his third trial. 1 federal, 2 state. And I did not watch this at all. Even on my break, I didn't watch it because I just fucking couldn't take it anymore. But there was a very interesting thing where a gentleman named Randy Medgraves asked the judge to sentence Nassar to spend 5 minutes alone with him. And then how about 1 minute, and then he charged Nassar. And there's a big fucking scene with the deputies grab him from the ground. Okay, it's over there. It's a viral video. And then Mr. Medgraves was taken into custody, detained for several hours, and charged with contempt of court. The DA also could have charged him with assault and battery, because even though Nassar is a convicted felon, this was an assault, because you cannot hurt anyone unless they are a threat to you right now. So when someone was a threat to you several years ago, and now they're in court facing justice, and you attack them, that is going to be an assault according to the law. because the law does not permit vigilante justice. Okay, but they had a hearing from him, and that I watched. Actually, I saw the posting on social media about the assault, and then they said the contempt hearing is coming up, and I caught that, and he was released. They just, we're not going to charge you. But someone set up a GoFundMe account, and the GoFundMe account raised several days ago $30,000, and Mr. Medgrave said he's going to donate that money to the women. He was the father of 3 girls who were assaulted by Nassar. And he was a pretty big guy. He wasn't the type of guy who's dude I want to fuck with. Now, interestingly enough, Doc Canales was saying, I don't agree with violence, but... And you gotta think about your career. Okay, this guy, Randy Medgraves, he was a fucking Teamster, okay? Teamsters don't give a shit. They beat someone up, please. 80% of the fucking Teamsters didn't beat someone up at one point in their life. But in cases like Doc Canales, he's a medical doctor. So he would have been able, so if he did that and he was in the courtroom with Nassar and Ingram, if he assaulted Nassar and he was in the courtroom with Ingram with him, he would have had to deal with contempt charge from the judge, assault charge from the DA, and whether or not they charged him, he also would have had to go home and face his own hospital administrative board, and he would have had to face the Ohio State medical boards. Okay, because doctors are not supposed to hurt people. Now, if you're a doctor and someone breaks in your house and tries to kill your family, different story. But if you attack someone, that is still an assault. Okay, and people get very emotional, but the eyes of the law, you can be punished. The judge let him go, DA let him go. He probably wasn't punished to work. He's considered a national hero. If I had done this myself, I would have been fired. The commissioner would have come down to that floor, and the commissioner would have told me. Actually, I would have been taken. No. Okay. If I had done that shit, the commissioner would have walked upstairs to the jail and told me that I was fired. Okay, so you gotta understand, you don't want to risk your career. Maybe if you're a civilian, you're working in the private sector, your job isn't gonna punish you. But if you're a doctor, or a lawyer, or a police officer, or a firefighter, or a paramedic, or a teacher, or any other public servant, okay, you can face disciplinary actions at work for crimes you commit outside work. Yes, you can. So you gotta worry about, do you want to throw your life away? Do you want to throw your career away? Okay. And there's also a video I'm gonna put below of Mr. Medgrave's press conference, and I'm also gonna put a link below to the final sentencing. Now I caught the tail end of the sentencing, and then I went back and watched it again. And I went onto fucking Mochiano's page. Oh God, again. I went onto her page and I said, he's being sentenced now. I feel guilty when I yell at you, so behave. I'm still laughing at that one. She's so good. But yeah. So he was given another 100 years. So he's gonna serve 335 years in prison. He was in a federal detention center in Michigan the other day, and today he arrived in Arizona in a high security facility. So he's gone forever. Various prosecutors and the Texas Rangers are investigating the Crowley Ranch itself, because many of the assaults took place at the Crowley Ranch over many years. And when Nassar was going on the road to Atlanta, Beijing, Athens, London, okay, he was going on the road with the Crowleys. So the courts and the law is very interested in figuring out what the Crowleys knew, if anything. And pretty much every gymnast the Crowleys have ever had are ready to swear in the Bible tomorrow that the Crowleys had to know. In fact, I was talking to Mochiano a while ago, and I told Mochiano when her book first came out, like like 6 years ago almost. I said, the Carolis don't care what happens to you, so long as at the end of what happens to you, you get on the podium. As usual, I was right, but I also no idea how right I was. Okay? The Carolis, and I was telling Moshe this last year, the Carolis knew how much she weighed. The Carolis would control all the food intake. You ever see these crazy camp movies? Like heavyweights, you know, where kids go to camp and the camp counselors search for food in the bunkers, okay? The Carolis would literally search kids for food, okay? They literally gave kids almost no food and kids had to sneak food in. In fact, Mochiano's massage therapist gave her a bear, and she actually hid candy in the bear's ass. I'm not even joking. The bear had a compartment for the ass. It's candy. And when I'm watching the 20 years to the day after the gold medal, the Magnificent Seven, I'm watching the video again, and I see Mochiano putting on her bag, and the bear comes out, and I'm like, oh, I know the candy's in the bag, bear. So girls would sneak food into the Curly Ranch. Carolis would have room raids, and they would search the rooms and find rappers and shit like that, because they want to keep the girls' weight down. The Carolis would weigh the girls in front of each other. If a girl gained 1 pound, Carolis would go fucking ballistic on them. Okay? So I was basically telling Mochiano, your own husband doesn't know how much you weigh, but the Carolis did. I said, the Carolis know how much you weigh. If the Carolis know every morsel of food you put in your mouth, chances are excellent they knew this was going on behind the scenes. Okay, so if you fall on someone's property, okay, you can sue them for basic medical bills. If you like fall and break your ankle, you can sue. Just for falling on your feet. Okay? So if you have a so-called doctor who was sexually assaulting girls in the back room at your property, because this was the Caroli Ranch was their property. They owned the Caroli Ranch with its own individual village. They had their own private house there. They had their full gym there. They had back bunkers there. They had petting zoo there, skeet range there. Okay, the Carolis had a village of their own, literally. And we also found out that even though Larry Nassar had a medical license to practice in Michigan, he did not have a medical license to practice in Texas. So you have an individual who was seeing little girls in the back room, and he has no license, and he's sexually assaulting them on top of that. So lawsuits could be in excess of hundreds of millions of dollars. But also, if the Carolis knew what was going on, they are indictable. Assuming the statute of limitations is okay, they are indictable for endangering the welfare of a child, failure to report. Okay, if they were threatening witnesses. Okay, so we're looking into. So the law is looking into them. The Olympic Committee told USA Gymnastics that every single board member had to resign, which included Valerie Luke, and thank God that fucker's gone. Okay? And the Olympic Committee still may ban gymnastics in the next couple of Olympics to punish them. They can still do that. The American team will not have a gymnastics team. Men or women, they can do men or women. And I hate to say it because you don't want to punish the girls, okay? Because these girls work very hard for the Olympics, and you don't want to punish the girls. However, you also don't want to put girls on a plane and fly them to, this time will be Tokyo, okay? You don't want to put the girls on a plane and fly them to another country if they cannot be taken care of, especially if any of them are under 18. And even though the parents go to the Olympics, the parents have to stay in separate hotel rooms, and the kids stay in the Olympic Village. And the only time they see each other is in competition, if they make ever a couple minutes to pull over on the side and just talk, or hug and kiss, or maybe the parents get a special visitor's pass to go to the Olympic Village and just sneak in a couple minutes with them. But for the most part, the parents and the kids separated. And if you have adults, coaches, administrators, doctors, nurses who can't properly supervise the kids. You don't want, I'd rather the kids stay home. I hate to say it, but I would rather not see the kids at the Olympics at all than see them go to the Olympics and find they got molested or they found something else happened. Okay? You gotta pick the lesser of two evils. But the lawsuits are gonna be in the hundreds of millions of dollars, okay? People are probably gonna be indicted. I know for a fact someone's gonna rat. Everything's happening the way I said it would happen. And one thing I want to close with, because I want to finish this up. It's like 1:40 a.m. over here. Here's the problem. The first conviction in the federal case, child pornography, had nothing to do with gymnastics. Therefore, all gymnastics boards were sound. MSU gymnastics, USA gymnastics, okay, all the gymnastics clubs were sound. The two girls that were sexually assaulted in the pool had nothing to do with gymnastics, so they were sound. Now, the first state conviction in Lansing, Michigan, that had to do with several, not only gymnasts, but there were about half a dozen sports that had athletes seeing Nassar. Okay, volleyball players, runners, swimmers, okay, more than gymnasts, okay, but a large majority of the victims were gymnasts. That has to do with gymnastics. So once the state sentencing, which was about violating gymnast bodies at MSU and at USAG, once that happened, USAG issued a, quote, statement, which is a bullshit statement. Okay? Once the Olympic Committee called for resignations, they told everyone to resign. And you know damn well when they resign politely, quietly, they get a handshake on the way out the door, and you know damn well they're collecting a pension. Okay? The gymnastics community, okay, the clubs, the coaches, the administrators, the hierarchy, they did not do anything until they were forced to. When the state conviction happened, when the state sentencing happened, that was their responsibility, because it was their girls who were victimized. So they issued a so-called apology. When the Olympic Committee told them to make guys resign, guys resigned. Okay? And according to Doc Canales, it's entirely possible the old order is going to pick the new order on the way to the door. And they still will not listen to his wife. His wife has had more shit hurled at her, even now. Okay? And we need to support her. Okay? Because she is the only adult that cares. And I was telling her this the other day, and she liked my comments. I said, there is one who has the final say over all of us. And he will remember you stood by your friends when no one else did. Okay? That woman put her friends, these girls are her friends, okay? These girls, Allie Raisman, sat in her lap, okay? Simone Biles plays with her son, okay? These women are her friends. They have her phone number. They're friends on Facebook, okay? They're allowed at her house, okay? She knows their parents, okay? They're her friends. They're people that she calls friend, okay? They're people that are allowed to call her house without getting yelled at, okay? They can show up at her house and just let them in. Okay, they're her friends, okay? And she stood by her friends when no one else did. And she knew that she was going to take shit for it. And no matter how much shit she took, she still stood with her friends. And I'm so proud that her and I like each other. I'm so proud that I support her. And I will continue to support her. Because I promised a long time ago that I would always support this woman. I promised it years ago. Okay? And I personally, when I go before God, there's a lot of things I don't have to apologize to God for. But you know what? Turning my back on this woman will not be one of them. Thank you.